and welcome to Business Line. The term Brexit first appeared in the British media at the start of 2012. On January 1st of that year, the Guardian newspaper reported a new word coming from Brussels. Then in January 2013, Prime Minister David Cameron delivered a speech in Europe saying Britain's membership of the EU should be renegotiated to be followed by what he called an in-out referendum on whether the country should stay or leave. That's when the term Brexit really took off. Actually, it's the United Kingdom that would be leaving, but UKexit sounds clunky. Back then, it was overshadowed by the term it had mirrored, Grexit. For years on, the chances of Greece leaving the euro currency zone are arguably lower than of the UK quitting the European Union. Now, when the term itself doesn't need any explanation, it's also become more real than ever. David Cameron did follow through on his promise, and it's all settled. In 4 months' time, Britain will vote on continued membership of European Union.
The UK will hold a referendum on membership of the European Union on Thursday, the 23rd of June this year. Prime Minister David Cameron made the announcement outside 10 Downing Street.
Last night in
Cabinet ministers had met to hear details of the renegotiation terms Cameron had agreed with EU leaders in Brussels late on Friday evening,
in which I updated them on the special status we have secured for Britain. I do not love Brussels, I love Britain. I'm the first to say that there are still many ways in which Europe needs to improve, and that the task of reforming Europe does not end with yesterday's agreement. We will never join the euro. We will never be part of Eurozone bailouts, never be part of the passport-free, no-borders area, or a European army, or an EU superstate. Thank you very much.
Cameron told reporters the government would be recommending the UK remains in a reformed EU. He described it as one of the biggest decisions UK voters will face in their lifetimes.
This will be just the third ever UK-wide referendum. The first was in 1975 when Britons decided to remain part of the European Economic Community by a large majority. And in 2011 there was a ballot on whether to change the system for electing members of Parliament at UK general elections. Having announced this vote, the Prime Minister started the pro-EU campaign, arguing that being part of the club is good for the British economy. Did he convince the financial world? Doesn't look like it, as Brexit uncertainty hit the value of the pound.
In the same way that share prices have been tumbling recently due to concerns about a slowdown in the global economy, Britain's currency, the pound, has been taking a pounding on worries that the UK is more likely to leave the European Union. Foreign exchange dealers don't like the uncertainty and so are selling sterling, which has fallen sharply against the dollar to its lowest level in more than 7 years and slipped in value against the euro and the Japanese yen. Analysts at HSBC, a big trader in sterling, say the currency could lose up to 20% of its value if Britons vote to leave the EU.
The British Parliament has released key numbers on the economic relationship between the UK and the EU. Now look at this. In 2014, the EU invested around 630 billion euro there. That's almost half of all the external investment in Britain. Trade with the EU is also very important to the region's second largest economy. In that year, just over half of all imports to the UK came from the EU. There was over 370 billion euro worth. 45% of all British exports, 295 billion worth, went to Europe. That trade created nearly 3.5 million jobs. Amid the migrants' crisis, unrestricted access to Britain from the continent has become a key issue in the debate. An estimated 3 million EU nationals live in the UK and roughly 2/3 are in work. That compares with roughly 1.3 million Britons living elsewhere in the European Union, according to data from the United Nations. Big businesses in the UK have focused on those numbers.
The bosses of more than a third of Britain's biggest companies have backed Prime Minister David Cameron's call for the UK to vote to stay in the European Union. They did that in a letter published in the Times newspaper. It was signed by the chief executives of major firms, including HSBC, Marks & Spencer, Shell and BP and British Telecom. They argue in favour of EU membership, echoing Cameron, who says leaving the EU would put the UK economy at risk.
3 million jobs are dependent on our trade with Europe. Now, of course, not all those jobs would go if we left the European Union. We'd still do trade with Europe. But can we really put our hands on our hearts and say all those jobs would be safe? That we wouldn't be disadvantaged if we were on the outside? I don't believe we can.
But London's outspoken and high-profile Mayor Boris Johnson, who's just said he backs the campaign for Britain to leave the EU, dismissed the significance of the business leader's letter.
We've got a great opportunity now to strike new deals for Britain to be the hub of new trading arrangements around the world and to have a fantastic new future. So that's what I'm going for.
However, Cameron received further endorsement on Wednesday when the EEF, which represents manufacturing, engineering and technology companies, warned of an abyss of uncertainty and risk if Britain leaves.
There may be Brexit worries in the UK, but in Barcelona, the IT crowd was getting excited at the Mobile World Congress, the place to find out what's going to be the next big thing in IT. With much of the attention focused on virtual reality, one major manufacturer's flagship smartphone launch was hijacked by its star guest. This is it. This is IT.
Virtual reality will change our lives, said Mark Zuckerberg during his surprise appearance on Samsung's stage at the Mobile World Congress. He's probably right, but whether it will change them for good or bad, that remains to be seen. Look at this photo the 32-year-old billionaire posted on his Facebook profile of him walking among people wearing VR headsets. The more than 11,000 comments the pic received were perfectly summarized by one user. It's kinda creepy. The debate spilled over other social media platforms. On Twitter, someone wonders, is VR going to turn consumers into masses of mindless zombies herded by powerful overlords? Well, if you ask me, virtual reality will simply require some human common sense, just like other technologies. I mean, do you really think someone binge-watching a TV show on a regular TV screen looks that much different from the MWC audience? But the real lesson here is be careful what you wish for. Zuckerberg just wanted to post something fun, and the result was a little scary. Samsung, on the other hand, just wanted to surprise his guests by inviting an esteemed partner. The result was that Zuckerberg completely stole the thunder of the new Galaxy S7. The following morning, all newspapers opened with his photos. That was it. That was IT.
That was it for now. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.